John Carpenter's The Thing hit the big screen back in 1982. It was a critical and commercial failure. That's right. Having a budget of around $15 million, it only grossed a little under $20 million from a theater release. Initially, it just didn't seem to walk that path to glory. While heralded and coveted by many as a cult classic today, hell, I'd say it shines on any of the top 10 horror flick lists, it took a little modern convenience called rental to spread its notoriety. Today, we really don't have that problem. So I'm going to dive into the shoes of something akin to that blob mass as the roles reverse and we play that slithering, slimy baddie in a game title called Carrion, where scientists far smarter than myself play God with DNA and create a wonderful, murderous snot burger of doom that we, the players, control. Nothing says loving like grabbing someone with a tentacle and then whipping them several times back and forth against the walls, hearing slurping, smacking sounds as their body cavity collapses under the strain. And remember, if you like this style of video, to give a thumbs up and subscribe. Carrion comes from the developers Phobia Game Studios and published under Devolver Digital. Released July 23, 2020. It's available on PC, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch at this time. This is the PC version I'm reviewing. It asks a simple question. What would it feel like to be the evil incarnate that makes grown men wet in their Jimmy Jims and wreak havoc for the sake of existence? Make the top of the food chain now much, much lower. I have to admit, as a lifelong horror fan, that the premise is very enticing indeed. But did they pull it off? Was the game satisfying? And more importantly, is it worth your time to play? To answer this, we first have to look at how the game is presented. Taking cues from a Metroidvania, it comes as a sprawling 2D romp where we're presented with a beginning, a baseline blob with minimal skills, and part of the solution to the Metroidvania always comes down to gaining new skills, equipments, or keys to unlock new areas. In this, Carrion pulls out the age-old calling card by the form of mutations. Mutations enable growth of the health bar, abilities to unlock new areas. This is also where I noticed something a little different from the typical copy beyond just the interesting theme. A dynamic adjustment to the health bar. The powers and skills unlocked in the larger form usually take away from that smaller form, with there finally being 3 stages of size growth. But how does one tap into the other smaller form abilities? Loss of health, loss of size. Phobia Game Studios also decided to give the player a place to drop a load of this gooish figure off at, diminishing the size and health, allowing to tap into the smaller body skills. This give and take happens quite frequently once introduced. Where going a room over, it is imperative to be smaller to use an ability as something as simple as a lever, going back, gathering the mass in full and carrying on. This give and take system is the crutch of the riddle solving. Health gain is also interesting. While in older games we may see the typical enemy drop a heart, in this one we eat the damn thing to regain the health, literally ripping and shredding masses of their body into our mouth and consuming them. This plays heavily into the atmosphere created, the morbid curiosity I exhibited when I would snatch a bystander fleeing for their life just to regain a couple notches back on my health bar. Several times I caught myself being a little more sneaky and snaking tentacles around just to snatch a victim whenever and however I wanted. It was pretty fun. Undeniably. What was not as fun was transversing a mapless world, with intersecting corridors and similar backgrounds, becoming disoriented on where I needed to go next, and having to rely strictly on clues presented or trying to remember spots I might be able to use a new ability at. I would say that this is an interesting decision. While having too much UI, especially in the modern gaming field, detracts from player immersion, Metroidvanians have presented and designed with this simple tool of a map for so long, it is often considered part of the package in playing them. On one part, I commend this direction. It did make me feel more immersed in the game not having one. However, for the few times I became stuck and confused on direction, it compounded my frustration of exploration, finding myself blistering from section to section, backtracking just to find the next part I should explore, while there was no real direction cues aside from the occasional flash to another screen and a section opening once you have triggered an event. I found the whole thing a very hands-off experience, and I'm on the fence if this was a bad thing or a good thing. And I decided that answer is yes. It is a bad thing and a good thing. One that has many positives as well as negatives. And while I can see people leaning towards this decision, others will definitely peel back. Carrion doesn't overstay its welcome. The average gamer will finish this title in a few hours. It also isn't incredibly hard or difficult. While there are some rooms where they throw few units together to make for an interesting combination requiring thought of maneuvering and attack, there really wasn't that many like this. Even if one fails, the save point isn't that far away via the use of this expanding mass procedure established as a spawn point. Also, speaking of save points, they act as a gatekeeper to content. Unlocking a set number in a particular area will eventually allow for the seal to another area to become open and left for the players to explore. This gives them a constant sense of progression and a goal in sight. This leads me to another interesting point to this title. The variety of environments could be considered quite lacking. You see, the player is essentially trapped in a facility trying to find the means to escape. There are sections, an arsenal, a science quarter, a habitat, etc. I can't say this detracted from my enjoyment much, when I consider titles like Dead Space having very similar set pieces. I didn't expect more, but I knew there could be room for more. At the beginning of this, I mentioned John Carpenter's The Thing. I think it's best I express how much this feels like a movie in a video game form. Especially the music, eerie ambience intertwined with thudding rhythmic beats. Very little what we consider traditional music scores aside from the occasional high-octane set pieces involved in some of the more interesting boss fights. I call them boss fights, but there really wasn't any. I feel like this pulls more into the power of the fantasy of being that ooze of destruction. You are the boss already. And with this interesting choice of musical score, while it gives off ominous tones, it is for your benefit and not to build tension. An interesting change in the flow. So here's my back-of-the-box breakdown. Carrion offers some interesting gameplay mechanics, administers a decent set piece to explore with limiting navigating tools, offers up very little narrative storyline while allowing the players to immerse themselves and create their own sense of narrative. The art style and musical direction is pleasing and it fits. You really feel like a giant blob of doom, complete with a swift, sweeping movement speed and special abilities that really fit into the decision-making and power progression. Carrion is a good game bordering on great. As weird as it sounds, and wanting so much to tap into that interesting energy of being the monster in a horror movie, Phobia Game Studios has nailed what we like the most, what makes us enjoy that genre, sheer mayhem. An interesting monstrosity, and a set location to play it all out in. Well, that's it for the review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is Dungeon J signing out. Have a great day gaming. Later.
I'm just walking the line and there's nobody with me.